This is 5 Minutes to Change Your Life. My name is Joanne Mallon. I'm an author and coach. I love helping people make wee changes that make a massive difference in their lives. Give me 5 minutes of your time today. Just might change your life. Hey, what about you? Joyful January continues. You know, a great joy for me a while back was getting to take part in the podcast Have You Got Your Shit Together with the wonderful actor and poet Caitlin O'Ryan. It's such a fantastic conversation. You know, it's a privilege to be listened to. I don't think people listen to each other enough these days. Caitlin is a fantastic interviewer because she's clearly very, very interested in people. And there's always a really good eclectic mix of guests on that show. And I was really, really honoured to be asked to take part. And now Caitlin has kindly returned the favour and she has come to share the joy in her life with us today. So as I mentioned, as well as being a podcaster, Caitlin is an actor and poet. Now, you might have seen her in her long-running role as Lizzie on the TV show Outlander. But as well as that, she's just such a force of creativity. She's been doing some amazing stuff in the world of poetry, spoken word poetry. I'm going to include a couple of YouTube links in the show notes so you can see Caitlin do her stuff. It's quite something. And if you're quick, this week she's performing on Thursday, 23rd of January in London at Signature Brew, Haggerston. So look out for a link to that as well. So, what brings you joy, Caitlin O'Ryan?
Hi, Joanne. Thank you so much for asking me to do a recording for your podcast. It's been really interesting sitting with some of the questions that you sent over and really reflecting on what brings me joy, because I guess like most people, I don't think I really stop and take stock of the things that I'm grateful for and the things that, bring me a bit of joy, which, interestingly, reflecting on it, feels different to the things that I just do for contentment. Joy feels like a little bit of extra spice. So I've enjoyed thinking about it. I don't know if you need this, but I'll introduce myself. My name is Caitlin O'Ryan. I am an actor and a writer. I write poetry and spoken word poetry. And I also have my own podcast called Have You Got Your Shit Together, which you, Joanne, were a wonderful guest on. I really love our episode that we had together. So I'm just gonna spitball with some of the questions that you sent over to me, and I hope that they will bring some insight into what I am starting to think might be quite a boring life that I have. So you asked me, what gives you most? Genuinely, it's small things. If I wake up in the morning and I've had a good sleep, that's always going to start the day off in a good way. I feel like we were never told that you can still wake up from sleep and feel tired. Like, what is going on there? It's a real rare thing to wake up from sleep and to feel like I have slept and that I don't need another full night's sleep. So if ever that happens, I always feel pretty good about myself. And then also like taking myself out for a walk. So as I kind of said, I am self-employed, which means that I spend a lot of time on my own. Not ideal sometimes, especially when you're an overthinker like me. And if I didn't force myself out of the house, then I think I would go a little bit crazy. Definitely like getting out even when my body doesn't want to, and going for a walk or, doing a bit of exercise or something. Even when my body literally just wants to stay in bed, I always know that that's going to be good for my brain. Does it bring me joy though? I think it does afterwards. I think I'm always happy to have gone. I'm not sure whether I'm feeling joy whilst I'm doing it. Maybe more so with a walk if it's a nice day and, I'm looking at some nice birds and stuff. But potentially not when I'm in the gym. But I definitely do feel better and pride in myself for, I guess it's like showing up for yourself a little bit, isn't it? So I feel good for having done that. But genuinely, one of the greatest joys in my life is a cup of coffee. It's a cup of coffee, the humble coffee. Not so humble, actually. It does have to be a good coffee. Like, ideally, I would like to go out for a coffee, and it has to be a good one. I am a little bit of a snob like that. Instant coffee, gone are the days that instant coffee was enough for me, I'm afraid. And a simple joy in my life is a good cup of coffee. I think I find it like an anchoring point in my day every day. And again, it's kind of like me getting out. Like, I go to a local coffee shop near me called Beaten by a Whisker in Walthamstow, which is wonderful. It's a vegan cafe. I'm vegan, but you wouldn't know that it's vegan, actually. Maybe I shouldn't have said that, because everything is exquisite, and it's not advertised anywhere as being vegan, but it is. And the coffee there is great, and just, I think what it is feeling like part of a community as well, and going and seeing the same faces, and, feeling like your existence matters for a moment because you're part of something wider, which, living in London, I think has been a massive issue for me, is feeling disconnected. And, it's a very transient city. And I think any moment where you feel an anchoring point is really good. But back to coffee, I just love the flavour. I love it. And it is like a moment of me time. It's also guaranteed to put a pep in my step, which then means that I can, go on and do the work that I actually need to do. Like, no one should talk to me in the morning before I've had a cup of coffee. So yeah, it's coffee. Another thing that brings me joy is listening to podcasts. I am obsessed with podcasts. I love it. I find it my main source of, I guess, like, political education, and also just like social education at the moment. It's the way in which I consume news, be that like actual political news, or just like, what's kind of going on in the world and what's feeling important to people. Or like, yeah, about like, I don't know, the ones that I listen to are kind of about like women-centered podcasts, and educating myself on like systems and whatever. I think I've always enjoyed education, I guess, and now being out of education or an education system, it's the way in which I kind of feel like I'm still learning, and it kind of tickles that curiosity for me. So some of my favourite podcasts, seeing as you're asking, which I know you are, one is called I Weigh by Jamila Jamil, which is actually she stopped doing them now, but I listen to them every week, and it was brilliant. It was basically, she started it because she was sick of people asking, specifically women, like how much they weighed and how women's worth was kind of linked to their weight. And so she started this podcast where she would interview incredible people, and then at the end she would ask them how much they weighed in terms of what they have achieved in their lives, or, some people would say, I weigh the love of my family and stuff like that. But the episodes are always super interesting. I'd always come away learning something. I would say that's probably had one of the biggest impacts on my brain over the past few years. I also love If I Speak, which is a Novara media podcast, and it is Ash Sarkar and Moya Lane McKinney, who I just think are both brilliant, and, the kind of women that I would love to be, and the way that they talk about, culture and society and politics and stuff. I just really enjoy their takes on things, and also it's like a light-hearted one as well, and they solve people's problems well. People can write in with problems and they will give opinions about them. And then I also really love Miss Me, which is Lily Allen and Mikita Oliver. That's a really good one. More fun ones, Off Menu, which is James Acaster and Ed Gamble. That's a really good one. That's talking about your ideal like meals, 3-course meals. I also really love Blind Boy podcast. That's a really good one. I mean, there's literally loads, but that's very much something that I do every single day, is listening to some kind of podcast. What is guaranteed to pick you up when you're feeling down? Generally, for me, it is some form of connection. I always remember I went and did CBT through the NHS at one point, which I think I was like 24. And, there was loads of good points made, but one of the things that really stayed with me was this idea of ACE that they have. And ACE is I want to say an anagram, but it might not be the right word. But it means achievement, connection, and enjoyment. And basically the idea is, if you if you feel like you've done one of those three things every day, you will feel somewhat happier. So if you feel like you've achieved something in the day, if you've connected or you've had a moment of closeness with someone, and if you've done something that you enjoy, then generally that will help your mental health, and that's always stayed with me. But I think the main thing for me has always been connection to people and to community. And I think specifically when I first moved to London, because I'm from Oldham, which is very small in comparison to London, and I just felt completely overwhelmed by it, and I felt completely isolated, and I couldn't believe that someone who lived 70 minutes away from you could still claim to be in the same city as you. That is crazy. So I was always looking for those moments of connection with people, and I really feel like the past couple of years I've been able to find that. And for me, that came from when I started writing and performing poetry and going to poetry events. So I would go to spoken word nights, and what's really lovely is that you see the same people at each night, and therefore I started to have friends that existed purely from London as opposed to like work or, you know, people who had moved down from home. It was very much embedded within the city. And what's lovely about the spoken word scene, or any kind of open mic, to be honest, I would really recommend, if people are feeling lonely, go to an open mic night, even if you don't want to perform, because people are just wanting to connect because they've done something vulnerable. And by virtue of that, you know, you can go over and say, well done, and then you can start a conversation. Like, I think it's a really brilliant way to connect with people. I do it whenever I go to another city now. I always go to an open mic night. I've made friends in places like New York from having done that, so I really recommend it. But what's so lovely about spoken word nights specifically is that I think by virtue of the art form, people are very willing to be vulnerable and to be open with each other. And also, I think it is just a real reminder in empathy and in listening to other people's points of view, and again, connection. Putting yourself in other people's shoes. But then also for me, it's a real reminder of like the shared humanity that we all have, because everyone experiences heartbreak, or everyone experiences joy, or, you know, you'll have someone writing about grief, and then you'll have someone writing about why they love plates that are shaped like bowls. There really is no topic off limits, and I always feel better from having gone to nights like that, even if, you know, I was kind of tired and wanted to stay in my house. If I force myself to something like that, I never regret it. And I always come away feeling inspired and connected with people. And I just think it's a really important thing. And I think when you are self-employed, or not even that, to be honest, like when we exist online in the way that we do, and we're constantly bombarded with the extremities of social media and how everything feels very black and white on there, and also you feel like the world is coming to an end and that humans are horrible. When you go to something like that, you're reminded that people are good and people want to connect and people want to be part of a community, and it makes everything feel a bit more manageable, which leads me on to volunteering is another way that I feel very grounded and connected with my community. So again, when I start to feel anxious and existential, I go to this wonderful place called the London Feeding Programme, which happens near me every Thursday. And a group of volunteers come together and help to prepare meals for homeless people. And what's really lovely is, again, it's a mixture of people from different backgrounds coming together to volunteer, and some have been past service users and some are like business people, but they all come together in a room and we're chopping vegetables, and some of the conversations are the most beautiful and rewarding conversations I've been a part of, because people make space for each other even if they're not necessarily aligned. And I think that is such an important thing that we kind of lack in this age of social media. So I really enjoyed doing that. What has given you the most joy over the last year? I wrote for this that the most joy has come from meeting new people, be that in the poetry scene or through the podcast that I have. So I have a podcast called Have You Got Your Shit Together, which is a celebration of not having your shit together, because no one does. And I kind of say that it's an antidote to Instagram culture. And I started it because, you know, I was very much falling into this thing of comparing my life and seeming lack of achievements in comparison to what I was seeing on social media of people who seemed to be killing it constantly. And then I would meet up with these people and we'd have, you know, candid conversations where they'd say that they were struggling, and I'd be like, whoa, if I knew that, then I wouldn't feel so bad about myself. So I wanted to create a space where those conversations could happen in yeah, like a candid and vulnerable way. And I just started it with my friend Ant, who is a wonderful producer, and at first we were just kind of asking mates to come on to be our guinea pigs, and then it grew and grew, and we've had some really amazing guests on it. And MPs, we had to go to like the House of Commons or the House of Parliaments, I forget which one, but to interview some MPs. And, we've ended up in like really wonderful places with musicians and actors and yourself, Joanne. Like, we never would have connected if it wasn't for something like that. And I always just feel so privileged that people feel comfortable speaking so candidly with me. And again, sometimes like I might not be feeling that up for the chat, but as soon as I'm in it, I feel so privileged to be having these conversations with amazing people, and then I come away feeling super inspired and reminded of the shared humanity again. So I really love it. And yes, that is a plug. Please go and listen to it. Also, I wrote the cinema. I love going to the cinema. I am a member of a local cinema near me called Castle Cinema, which is gorgeous. And I also have a Movie Go membership, which means that I can see a different film every week. I would have said for free, but I'm paying for the membership. And the reason that I like going to the cinema is because it forces me to get off of my phone and to be present with the piece of art. Some art is better than the others, but it forces me to be present with it. Whereas I think my attention span, like everyone's probably, has been so affected by social media that, it's a nice moment of like being present with another bigger screen, if I'm honest. But I really like it, and it's like a date with myself. And that's the same with like going to exhibitions or anything like that. It's being present with something else. What else? I have been really lucky. Last year I got to go to Skye for the first time. My favourite thing in the world is road trips with your best friends. And I am a passenger princess. I cannot drive yet. I live in London. I don't have to. I definitely need to, but I don't have to. So I love like putting on the tunes and just driving along with your best friend. I don't think there's any better feeling. Shout out John Bell for being my driver everywhere. Also, recently I went to Austin and we went to a honky tonk there, and I learned how to two-step dance, which again is like a community dance kind of thing. And honestly, it was the most fun I've had. It was so fun. And there was something very nice about like, a stranger asking you to dance and you doing a 3-minute dance with them and then you saying thank you and goodbye. And again, just those moments of connection with people and moving your body. And, it was just a really lovely thing. That's why I love ukulele as well. I love ukulele. My favourite thing in the world is karaoke. If you don't like karaoke, I have questions. I just think it's the most joyful thing in the world. Karaoke is not for singers. If you can sing, you should go and do a gig. I'm not here to hear your good voice. I'm here to watch someone who works in IT who isn't sure whether he's that good a singer, didn't really want to do it at first, but then he gets up and he has his rock star moment. That's what I want to watch. I want to see people doing extraordinary things. And that's what karaoke is for me. I love it so much. It's the best. I put open mic nights generally, I've touched on that. I just think it's a really nice way to meet people. Yeah, those are the things that bring me joy. Also, my family and my friends, I think it's easy to take them for granted sometimes because they're there all the time, but I would definitely notice if they weren't. So, their health and their happiness brings me a lot of joy. Yeah, I could probably go on with loads of things. Reading poetry, listening to music, these are things that I do every day. But it really is the small things, I guess. I have waffled on, so I'm going to wrap this up. But thank you very much. This has been lovely. And Happy New Year, if we can still say that. Bye!
And a happy new year to you too, Caitlin. Wasn't that brilliant? So many thoughtful, really useful recommendations there from Caitlin. A big thing that was coming through for me there was the importance of connection and community, and how if you don't have the type of community around you that you want, that doesn't mean that it's game over, because you can still get out there in the world and find your people. So, as I mentioned at the start, you've got a chance to see Caitlin performing live this week at Signature Brew Haggerston in London. I'm going to link to that in the show notes. I know that she performs regularly in lots of different places. And then, of course, you can listen to her wonderful podcast, which is called Have You Got Your Shit Together? But the best thing to do to find out about all that stuff is to follow Caitlin on social media at Caitlin O'Ryan. And you can find out about everything that she's up to. I'll be back very soon with some more joy. See you soon. Bye.